Good evening, everyone. This is Celebration Resident Owners Association Board of Directors meeting. We have a few people online, and our first order of business is to ask for owners' comments. If you are online and have comments, you can either raise your hand or unmute yourself, and we will take comments. Anyone online have comments they would like to express to the board this evening? Anything? Okay,
No hands up?
no hands up. Someone, Mr. Hudspeth, can you verify you can hear us?
This is Gary. I can hear you.
Thank you, sir. All right, it is now, well, 6:01. We do have a couple more people joining us. I think everyone's on, right? Oh, no, here's some more. Anyone who would like to make any owner's comments? I'm going to give you one last time, and then we'll move on to our stated agenda. Okay. Oh, does Patty have her hand up, or am I seeing things? Thank you. All right. Very good. Susanna, can we verify this meeting was properly noticed?
Yes, it was noticed at least 48 hours in advance.
Thank you very much. And I verify that we have a quorum. We have 6 here in the room and 1 online.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. We have a quorum. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any comment or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the CROA board meetings from August 4th, August 9th, and August 25th. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Action and discussion items. The first item is a discussion of the Island Village Phase 1A recreational supplement. Jackson.
Because we have not received any information from our attorney and a markup, I'm going to make a motion to table this action discussion item.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ooh, we got 2 seconds.
Anybody?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. We will table.
When this comes back, if I missed.
No, you go right ahead.
When this comes back around, can we also have some further background documentation on it? Typically, we have the cover sheets and this one was blank. So just the context is helpful, why we're looking at it, if we're looking at it again, whatever the key things. And then, the attorney's reviewed. That just provides us and it provides residents the context of a legal document or any documents. I mean, like later on, we have basketball court, that sort of thing. So that would be helpful. Thank you very much.
And when this comes again onto the agenda, can we have Tom here as well?
Yes.
Just to answer. Then Tom Slayton is our attorney, just to answer any questions live in person if they arise during the discussion. Any other comments on that item? Okay, motion to approve the Blue Sage Service Area Committee resolution.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Just to be clear, this is the same sort of resolution as we have for other service areas. Nothing is substantively different. This is part 1. Part 2 would be then individuals elected to serve, just to
Yes.
clarify that.
Yes, and we do have 3 residents from that service area who have volunteered. The meeting, because the votes had to be postponed, so it'll be rescheduled very
Okay.
shortly.
And I'm thrilled about this one. How many service areas do we have and how many now have?
We have 13 service areas, and as far as committees go, 1, 2, and then.
I would guess 7 or 8.
I think we've hit majority now.
This
Excellent.
would make
We
sense.
are on the right
That's
path, so
great.
thank
That
you.
is great.
Thank you very much.
This is a big deal, and I'm glad we've been able to do it. I appreciate that management's worked hard, and we finally figured out what a majority of a quorum means, and, we're getting volunteers to participate, and that's really what it should take. So for those other service areas, if you're listening, you can do this. I mean.
You too can have a committee.
You too can have.
So now that the majority will have had one established.
It's more
maybe that-
enticing to have it. And if you as a committee, as an owner, in a service area, want a voice in where your dollars go and how your community, if you will, appears, this is how you do it.
We've had someone reach out for Academy Row, but just one person, and that's so big, they're like 16.
Well,
So
that should definitely have one with 60
Yeah.
units.
You
That's
gotta-
even more important.
Sometimes you kind of, I say, well, go out and get your people.
Go knock on those neighbors'
Spread the
doors.
word.
Do we have, or will we have, possibly with the information that's going to be coming through shortly, email addresses for just those areas? And could we solicit amongst, let's say, those 60 in Academy, hey, are you all interested? If so, this is how you take that step.
We sent an email blast out a few months ago to every service area saying, service areas do this, this, and this for you. Are you interested? Please reach out. So we did.
Yeah, we do
Okay.
have emails by service area because they get it for maintenance topics. So I think it's a good point. I think we should just continue to reinforce that this is something that exists. It's so weird and people don't understand service areas. It's not the norm. I think the more we educate and say, here's what it means, exactly what Kevin just said in terms of having a voice in your community, getting to make some decisions. When we get to the budgets, I hate to say that with Brian on Zoom, but when we get to the budgets, we are going to have to start talking about service area budgets. And it would be much better if these service areas had committees.
In that regard, as we look at the remaining 6 service areas, could those emails be tailored slightly differently now that we have a majority? And by the way, here are some examples of what service areas have actually done or talked about that otherwise the residents aren't talking about in a knowledgeable way. I mean, here's some specific examples.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. I'm glad that we're in progress.
I think you're getting on the Zoom meeting.
But I'm
right?
just thinking of a
Just
a
mute your
different
mic there.
a different tone
approach.
that says, here's some of the experience, and we hope that you will be able to have a voice.
Okay, and I just did a list of, we have 8 now.
Hmm.
So 8
Oh,
out
so
of
this would be 8.
Who's
Good,
eight?
out of
That's
13.
beautiful. Thank you
Well,
so
It's
much.
more than a
So
majority.
I'll do another one and we'll kind of approach it in
Just-
a different kind of
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
here's some examples.
Some
of
examples.
what we could do. Okay.
And
good.
one of the things, I had the pleasure of meeting with the Blue Sage residents to walk their property and discuss some issues that they were having. And that's kind of where, so, you have a voice in this if you had a service area committee, and that's, and I think that they kind of understood more how they could impact and be, help hold us with the contracts accountable and hold the vendors accountable.
I
So,
think it's also
yeah.
such a good education because it's hard sometimes to understand from a resident point of view how it all works together. You
Right.
have to solicit different vendors. They have requirements. There's schedules you have to fill. There's a cost that maybe doesn't fit in your budget, that something you can do this year, but when we do the budget meetings, maybe you want to add that to it. So next year you can do that.
Exactly.
So it's a great learning tool for residents who are just kind of not knowing.
And too, Susanna, you might want to address the time commitment involved. Maybe you don't have a lot of people pounding on your door because they think,
It's too much.
meetings too much, blah. So you might want to just say, typically,
Quarterly walks, quarterly meetings.
yeah.
yeah,
Right.
not a big commitment. All right. So we have a motion, we have a second.
Yeah.
I think this one we can say all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. That motion carries. Next one, hot topic, motion to approve the resurfacing of the basketball court by Advantage Courts LLC in the amount of $3,907, which is a CROA replacement reserve expenditure.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this?
So is this the company that when we were talking about this 2 weeks ago, that there was already somebody there and they said they could do it all at one time,
Yes.
get it done? So apparently, because I had nothing else to do yesterday, I listened to the Parks and Recreation meeting. And I'm 99.9% sure that they said this could not be started until December. Is that your understanding?
The recreation committee said that?
That the basketball courts could not, the guy couldn't start the resurfacing until December?
We have been in contact with him. I don't know that the recreation committee has been in contact with him. Has he?
It's a possible I
I
misunderstood,
heard-
but my ears kind of perked up like, what?
I met with a vendor today about they wouldn't be able to get out until December for something completely different.
Oh, maybe that's.
But Advantage didn't say they couldn't do it till
I don't,
December.
they haven't given me a date yet.
Yeah, we've asked though to see how quick they could start because I know you wanted to start
Yeah.
this. as
Right.
soon
Yeah,
as
the,
you could,
when we,
and they just
There's a
haven't-
comment online that Joseph said that Nikki made the comment.
okay,
Okay, so
So-
we'll clarify that. and we'll
Thank you.
Figure out when they can be out. But yes, this is the same company that's got approved to do the post
Yes.
work. And so they came back and said they can do it all at once and do the surface.
well, when we talked about going above and doing the resurfacing, we said, get them on call and tell them if this gets approved at the board meeting, we want them to start right
They
away.
made the call, but
And
they
the-
just haven't come back with the date yet.
Okay.
And to be honest, we are finding that among almost all our vendors. You can't find people to call you back. Maybe they're having workforce short on labor. COVID is hitting a lot of these companies. Everybody's scheduling later. You can't hear from people. I mean, I know Tim says it all the time, and I've had the experience too. So it's tough out there right now.
Yes, thank you, Brian, for adding that comment. David, did you have a comment?
Yeah, when I saw this in the board book, I raised a question in writing, you responded. Just to be very clear, in the background, in the description, they talk about a tree root that's caused an uneven playing surface, but I didn't see that in the scope of work with the company. Did I miss something?
Well, I emailed you back
Right,
and
right,
said
I
that
saw
there's
that.
a line item that talks about grinding and sanding down the court.
So that's what that means? I just want to make sure A and B are connected. I
Well,
mean, I saw what you wrote, I just,
because he came out and looked at it, right, Tim, and made his quote based on what he saw, and it included sanding and grinding down. However.
oh, grinding down the tree root.
The surface.
The
of
surface above
basketball.
the- yeah.
Surface that's caused by the tree root.
Yeah, that got raised up.
So Tim called again just to see, like, is there any extra work that's involved there, and again, we're waiting to hear back.
So just to clarify that that is included rather than an add-on charge later, because just to make sure that what's in writing is doing what we intend to do.
Well, Tim, a question for you. Is there any warranty to his work? Because I
1 year.
don't see anything
Yeah, 1
mentioned.
year.
For that, it's a 1 year.
There it is.
For the
Right,
resurfacing.
right in my face. I'm looking
Nah,
at
it's
the
okay.
tiniest print right here.
It's all right.
Forgetting that.
Usually you gotta look for that.
That's what I normally have to look for.
Yeah, Tim knows
Thank
a
you.
lot more about basketball than me, so.
So I have questions about the two options, Tim. Option one is to saw cut the perimeter of the court to make a clean edge. That's $1,600. Do you recommend that or not?
I mean, if,
I don't know what that means. I know what a clean edge is, but what do they mean when they say to saw cut the perimeter?
my guess is just making a good hard cut.
And what is it
along that
right
seam.
now?
That is, you got the grass coming up to it, but yet it's still edged around it from the landscaper. So I don't see a big difference with getting it saw cut, paying that $1,600.
Okay. And then the second was to put a second coat of acrylic resurfacer on for $750. What's your recommendation there?
I was actually gonna reach out and ask about that, ask more about the material that they're using too. To see what they recommend, call another company, maybe send them pictures, see what they recommend for that as well.
Okay, because the proposal is for 2 coats of the acrylic, so
It's
they're
already got
now
the 2
saying for a
coats.
third coat. Is that something you can add later as play goes on?
Oh, yeah,
And see what
yeah.
the,
It would
Which
just
means
have to be
restripe
set
it.
A
back
year from now,
down,
keep it fresh.
clean it, and then they could do another coat 6 months later if it,
So that would be considered regular maintenance.
yeah.
well, yeah, I mean, they were talking about it as an add-on for the work here, but it sounds like it's something that could be done at a later date.
So Tim, is this, when it says saw cut, are they talking about like this area there?
Yeah, you see that edge?
So is that where the 1,600 for the saw cut would come in to make a
Yeah.
clean edge?
I guess so, yeah.
So do you want to ask them to have that 1,600?
I actually wouldn't be a fan of the saw cut. Someone sprains their ankle or something, and then they decide they want to sue us or something. I mean, you got a playground right there on a ground. I mean, it would seem to me that it's pretty normal.
So you said you were in favor or you were not in favor?
We're not.
Thank you, just to clarify. Okay. So,
Is this asphalt? Or something else?
It's acrylic.
No,
The-
the court itself, I believe there is some sort of asphalt on there. Because it does, like a little bit of it was chipped on the edge and you can see it. So I'm not sure how thick that asphalt really is.
I was hoping it was gonna be thicker than what I see here. This almost looks too darn thin.
And this is just a resurface.
yeah, so this resurfacing is really just patching the cracks
Giving it a fresh coat of.
and giving it a
couple
fresh
coats of-
coat of paint
new
and,
lines.
yeah, new
Well-
lines and then sealing it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what,
I'm trying to do a search online to see what the comparison is of saw cut versus not.
Mhm.
And I can't find anything. Is there any way that we could see a picture of what that looks like? I want to get this done, but I also want it done right. To see what that actually means in a better sense.
Yep.
Can we
Brian,
approve,
what do you
could we approve the contract tonight, subject to the possibility of adding on that option later? Because I don't want to delay this getting
Any
some work
further.
done, but I don't know what this other thing is either, so.
Well, Brian, what were you saying? What was your reason for not liking the saw cut?
I assumed that it was going to create a distinct edge where someone could actually sprain their ankle or something coming off of it. If it means something totally different, I'm fine approving this with it coming back to, say, one board member and management to just make a decision. I'd like to know why we're spending $1,600 and what we're possibly getting for it, but I don't know exactly what it means either.
We know when it was last resurfaced, how long this surfacing has lasted.
1825.
I was just gonna say the
18?
same
I was gonna
thing.
say at the beginning of time.
Sure it wasn't 26,
Didn't we find out in 2016?
2016.
Is this the same company?
Yeah, so to me, the larger question, not for us tonight, is, and again, looking at the nature of this asphalt that looks awfully thin, what is the best solution for basketball services in this community moving forward? And what sort of court/playing surface would be ideal? That's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with, if you will, a temporary fix for a
That's
few
exactly what
years.
this is.
Right.
Because in our larger discussions, this may not be the location for basketball courts. And we may want more courts and regulation size.
Which we
But
do not
this would
have
not
yet.
be that location unless we want to take away, you know what I'm going to say, parking. space.
Parking or-
No, so I didn't say that, but.
No.
You-
but
You're
seriously,
going way too much in the weeds.
Okay.
This is a
But you-
temporary solution.
This
This
is
is
a
a
temp-
Band-Aid for an issue that needs to be fixed. so
This
people
is a temporary
continue enjoyment.
solution.
So I call
Done.
the question. Let's just.
Okay, so let's not go down that
I
path
just saw
of
10 posts go on
amenities.
Facebook.
Because we might get,
Just to be
okay.
clear, this is temporary because it doesn't look like a great surface.
No. Okay, so again,
Put that
we,
mask
My
on.
iPad is vibrating.
okay, so we all agree this is to get the basketball courts up and functioning,
Exactly.
not a
aesthetically
complete
pleasing.
redo, and safely, because now we have a safety issue up there. That's why we had to shut them down to begin with. This gets them up to safety. I'm gonna
Done.
call the vote on this. Brian
Who made the motion?
Me,
and
Jackson second.
Jackson second.
Okay, and this is to include the 1,600 if we find out it's worth it, right?
Well, it's to approve the motion and then come back and tell us about the options.
Yes.
Just need to know what it is. I don't know.
Yes.
I
That
don't
maybe
know much know what
designate
it
one
is.
board member to work with management, I think you said.
But up to the amount.
Up to the amount of the contract, okay?
Okay.
All right, Brian, do I hear you out there? Is he still there? I don't hear Brian. I'll come back. Jackson,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Celia, Kevin,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That passes. Although Brian, are you out there? Dropped off. He'll dial back in. I'm sure he will anyway.
He went to shoot a few hoops.
Or he's on vacation, so you got to give him props for being on this call. He's on vacation, so. Okay, let's go on to the next item. No, well, we don't get paid. Motion to approve the addendum to the CJC, CROA, and CANOA cost sharing agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion?
We talked about
This is the agreement
That
that
was-
we made earlier. It reflects what we had and what we discussed, I think, accurately.
Yeah,
For public and community reference, is it worth going into a little more detail so they understand what it is specifically?
The document is with it online that they can see it. We can talk about it further if you'd like to, but it is just it basically is holding the amount of money that CROA was paying to a steady amount, though we chose to go with maybe a little more expensive choice through our management company of Grand Manage. Does that
I think that helps.
basically
Thank you.
explain it? Because we are the majority, we use the majority of the management company's time. Clear statement? Is fair statement?
Fair, yes. Thank you.
Yes, it's, okay. No other discussion? Brian, is he back with us? Not yet. Jackson,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
David,
yes.
Celia, Kevin?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So we passed that with 6 votes. Discussion only of the new covenants policy timeline. Little background on this information. I think we also have Stefan, and I know we have Gary Hudspeth online. If you could unmute them or ask them to unmute if they have conversation. The covenants committee has proposed a new timeline for when we send letters to residents and when we follow up with residents. And that timeline was approved by the board in July. And we need to have a discussion about implementing that policy and whether we can do that fairly and with everything else going on with the transition from CCMC to Grand Manners. Grand Manners provides us with a new online software which will manage all of these processes. And if we implement the policy now, we're going to do double work, basically. We will start the policy now and then have to move it into Grand Manners software. So the conversation that I would like to have in me, get the full screen so I can see the people that are talking, would like, if they have comments. We need to discuss that timeline. So
So they discussed this during the last covenants.
thank you.
meeting,
And you are the liaison.
And
to
I
the
was there.
covenants. Thank you.
And there would need to be a 30-day notice period, they feel. Send out a notice that's starting, 30 days from today, whatever, which puts us, if we did it today, in mid-October. That does not make sense to me. I think we should wait until the change and then go from there.
Can we make a notice today, effective November 1st? It's a minimum.
I think it's probably something that you wait and see because you have training to do, like, will it be ready to go November 1? Like,
Oh, I see.
I think there's
There's going to be a ramp up time.
timeline to see
right.
how I would say a realistic approach would be January, of the new year, possibly. Then you're starting off with a clean kind of, here's the new year, here's the new way, but we can play that by ear.
So forgive me, I was a little distracted, so I didn't hear everything.
I know
you
it's
said.
my shirt with all the spangles on Maybe not.
When it comes to December every year, we skip going through the process, if you will,
Right.
call it a gift. Given the transition and everything happening, let Grand Manners come in, work with the current team, work with the committee, and then come up with a plan to roll out thoroughly. It actually ties into a connection of the transition. It might have to wait till February, but that might be when it happens.
So not
In concept, this is great, but
Okay.
the reality.
Any
I
other-
don't see it
yes,
happening.
David.
The concept here is 14 days, which implies rigorous, and it doesn't have to be rigorous. I mean, we could approve this and say, implement it as soon as you can. So it may be, and so we announce that it's going to be implemented. And as the new system gets rolled in and then training happens, it might be 3 weeks, which is okay. But we're moving towards 2 weeks, no less than 2 weeks, but we're just
Allow
kind of
me
moving.
to reword in concept. In concept, the item needs to be addressed. This process needs to be addressed.
Exactly.
That's what I am referring to as in concept. I believe that there are too many moving parts right now to get into those 14 days, because I would agree with you in that. But I want to hear what the recommendation is of management
Can we ask,
in a couple months.
can we ask I think they're unmuted, Gary and the Covenants Committee, we're online. Do you have any comments you'd like to add?
Yes, this is Gary Hudspeth. Let me explain a little bit of the mechanics. You decide the implementation timeline. Although I will say I'd like to start sooner rather than later. We must honor all current violations that are in the pipeline in the 3-letter process. So if someone got inspected in August, they got their first letter, and let's say they didn't make the correction, they'll get a second letter, and if they don't make the correction, they'll get a third letter, because they're already in the pipeline in the old process. At every meeting of the Covenants Committee, we are looking at violations that are over 11 months old. So for the next year, even if you implement this process November 1st or January 1st, we're still going to be looking at violations that are almost a year old for the next year. So that process we must honor that process, because we gave them a first letter which told them that. We can't say, you got your first letter, now we're going to shorten it to 14 days. That would be unfair. However, we do want to start this new process, which is authorized by Florida statutes and is implemented by many other homeowners associations that even CCMC does. This document came from one of those organizations. So that when you start the new inspections, and let's say it's November 1st or January 1st, you decide, that starts the new process as they get a notice, and now they have 14 days to contact Town Hall and give them a plan of action. That doesn't mean they need to fix it in 14 days, although many of them will be fixed because they left their trash bin out or some other minor problem, but they must come up with a plan of action in 14 days. So you see what I mean is, if the longer you wait to implement this, we're perpetuating the 3-letter process in the future for months down the line. And that's why I'd like you to implement it as soon as you can.
Thank you for clarifying that.
So I'd like to also just
Thank you.
explain the next step. Gary did a great way of explaining the coverage process. So what's different about this time is that, so if it's landscape, painting, cleaning, a few things you immediately get the 14-day notice. You have the opportunity to reach out to community standards to give a plan. If you don't, then the next letter you get is the proposed fine.
Mhm.
So it moves into that process, which is the point of what they're trying to do, is escalate it so people address things quicker. But you're also going to have longer proposed fine lists, probably longer covenants agendas, that system. So just to explain the overall process and how it goes from the beginning to the end. And I think, I don't think it's going to cause more work necessarily on the inspector's point, but I think you're probably going to get resident feedback on the increased timeline, the faster pace during, and I think
The decreased time.
decreased time, right? Faster velocity, I guess.
Faster.
Yeah.
And then I guess the question was posed, just, is this the time you want to do that during the transition? It's not necessarily, is it a good idea or not? It's more just like, is this the timing that you want to do that?
So the residents are going to be transitioning to new software that they will be allowed to see they'll have access to their account. They'll have to set up new payment issues, right? So I'm trying to think through everything that the residents will have to be involved in. And the communication plan for this change will be key as to that people are going to start anticipating this, that they know they need to reach out. I'm also concerned that during this transition, we asked them to contact Town Hall within 14 days. We've already acknowledged that we don't really have full staffing right now at Town Hall. And now we're going to ask for those people to contact you with a plan is that going to create even more stress on the office when you're in the middle of training your staff on a new software system, on a whole new way of doing things, and, you know, all the additional training that's going on. So
But I
that's
think-
my concern.
And I think ultimately it goes back to the homeowners being frustrated, you know, with us, if we're not, you know, and understandably so, if we're not returning their phone calls and they're like, well, I called you within the 14 days. or
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't, or why
That's-
didn't you get back out, or.
That's
know,
my
something
concern,
like
is that
that.
we're not going to live up to the standard that we just set. That
Sure.
said 14 days, you call us, everything's great. And that's what we've always asked, is for them to contact us and have a plan. And then we work with them. But if we don't have that ability to live up to that on our side of the fence, that's my concern. And I know Gary, and, you know, and I thank you, Gary, for explaining
So,
that. David.
yeah, so seems like there's three things. We have this concept here that we can
Mhm.
approve.
Yep.
Then the question is when to implement, and based on what we've just said, it sounds like January 1 or February 1 may be the best time, to be determined, but in conjunction with transitioning management and new management. And then third, as Gary pointed out, we have the existing system. So we're going to have two parallel systems for a while. You know, honoring the old that's on a different timeline and moving those through at the same time as new violations effective, if you will, January 1 or February 1. But I
And-
think it's better to wait.
And all of us have, all of us have sat into the appeals meetings and
Mhm.
said, why are we looking at 18-month-old, 12-month-old,
Exactly.
18-month-old violations?
Exactly.
This is going to help solve this. If you hear background noise, it's raining here. So I think this is going to help solve it, but I just don't want us to
Not November
set a
1st.
standard that we cannot live up to on November 1st.
Well, and this also involves a data transfer, correct?
Yes.
Because so the last thing you want to do is say, you know, starting December 1st and if things, for whatever reason, if there's a glitch, then it's
I'd
just going to
almost
make
wait
it
till
even more.
February. I'm almost wait.
Yeah.
But
I don't-
let management decide.
We can discuss this again in November,
Yeah.
late November, early December, if we would like.
Mhm.
I think I like
But
that, because then
I
then
don't-
we'll know more where we stand with training, with implementation of software. I think
But
that's
we can
a
approve
great
this.
idea.
We can approve this tonight and then it's
Sure.
great. And
We
do
really,
public
this is,
notice.
there
It's
really
already
wasn't
approved.
anything the 14 days is already approved. We're
Oh,
just
that's-
discussing
yeah,
when to
that's right.
implement.
Nothing gets
You're right.
approved tonight.
You're right.
Yeah, no, this
Thank
is
you.
just discussion.
Thank you. Thank
No
you.
votes.
No, there is no vote. I like the idea of
Good.
I'll put it on the November, December 10th.
there you go.
But
Any other-
but there's a key point that you made also,
Mhm.
the communications plan and
Yes.
how this rolls out is going to be critical.
So what we could do is start putting something in the Friday Flash every week, just to say there's a new covenants process that's going to be beginning within the next.
Put it in the celebration
4 to 6
news,
months.
put it in the
This is
celebration
what
news.
It's gonna look like, you know, you'll get a 14-day letter, then, you know, you contact, we can go through that.
Maybe working with the covenants committee and
Because there's always
putting
someone
an
that reads
article
one
in.
Friday Flash, but they're out of town the next, and they missed it. You know what I mean? So the more you put it out there.
Well,
the
and
more
they don't-
engagement happens.
And they may look at it and go, oh, that doesn't apply. You know, oh, that's nothing. I don't want to read that right now, but I think we need to, and also, as we start getting closer to when we are going to implement this, get it to the top of the Friday Flash.
Okay.
Maybe- Yes.
Quick thing, before we start going in Friday Flash, is it better for Grand Manners to, part of their introduction email to the community, express some things that might be coming through as updates or changes, and to be on the lookout? Otherwise, we're going to get you phone calls when they see in a Friday Flash covenants changing.
Stacy's not a yes.
The only thing is, I don't want Grand Manners to say, oh, Grand Manners is coming in and now we're changing our policy, because this was long before I'm sorry, Gary, did you have a question, Gary?
Well, I wanted to compliment what you just said and what Kevin said.
Is-
I would not recommend publicizing this until you agree on a start date. Like Kevin said, and I think Diane echoed this, as soon as you publish it and then say to be implementation to be determined later, you're going to get all those phone calls saying, well, I already got a letter and does this change? So it will confuse people, especially if you say to be determined at a later date. I would wait until you agree on an implementation date, then publicize it, and then there's no question about the dividing line about new inspections from this day forward are under this policy. Second sentence, if you have already received a violation letter, this does not change the process described in your letter.
Yes,
Yes.
will do, Gary.
Yeah, so communication here, and David, you're the master of communication, if you can help us out that. Brian, are you logged in twice?
He was, his split personality just went into receivership or something.
I think
Is that
Brian's
him?
on the
Is he
call
the
twice, and I'm sorry.
He's frozen there.
He's
maybe he was
frozen
on a
now.
phone, I don't know.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Diane, this is Stephen Fromfelder.
Thank you, Stephen. What's going on? Hi.
Just as to pile on from what Gary has been saying, the covenants inspections or the actual, there is no conducting of a hearing in the month of December. That's a decision, a policy decision that has been from the board for years on past. The issue, though, that the covenants committee has forced with is that it then starts backlogging a lot of the cases because we continue to push that on back. I would like to emphasize as the chair that we need to implement with the new year. We cannot continue to push back with this because we're trying to catch up. And the issue with this is right now, we do not have 2 years ago, our hearings used to be 47 particular cases. We're doing 12, 18, 14, because there's just not that many being worked through. So, the committee has done 50 odd cases in 2 hours. We have the people to do that, the volunteers that are on the committee. But we need to get this thing implemented and running, I would say, no later than the 1st of January with the new year. And let's just start. And I think that we need to target with the new management as that we make that as an objective, because pushing this thing down the road, we're not going to get this thing corrected. It's just been a problem for years.
Thank you. I do believe that this is going to take us down the path of getting better at the process and moving things through faster. So thank you. We understand. So we're still in agreement. We'll come back at this in November when we have more handle on the transition. Good.
End of
Okay.
November, early December? Is that what we kind of said?
We said we take a look at it. Why don't we say the first board meeting in November?
I think that's too soon.
You think?
Maybe the second one, just.
Are we having
just to
two in
see how
November? Are there
things-
2 on the calendar for November
I
though?
thought we had one.
I think there's only one because of the holiday.
Oh,
So I said first, it may be the only one. You can have your own board meeting.
Yeah, if you want to hang out, you want to
Yeah.
hang out?
We'll have to look at that because I'm sure there's going to be things that need approved. It may even have to be a virtual one. So we can look at that. Okay.
Kind of
All right.
thinking the first board meeting in November after Gray Manners has just taken over, there might be a little bit on the agenda. Just a
Just a
wild
little bit of
guess.
conversation. Okay. All right. We are now moving on to item 7, which is 6. I'm sorry, I'm moving ahead here. The 2022 budget, which is a thrilling conversation. Cindy, what would you like to share with us on the budget?
well, I'm sure Brian
Or
has plenty
Brian,
to
is he,
say.
I don't know if he can talk. so.
Um, You don't think Brian can talk?
Well, I don't know if
really?
he kind of froze up and he's on there
Talking about
twice and I don't know.
technology,
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I've been tasked.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
No.
we can. Now we can.
I've been tasked with working on the service areas. So Susanna and Tim and I worked through the afternoon a couple Mondays ago. They had their ideas. We went through line by line for everyone and kind of chatted about it, decided what was feasible, what was probably a stretch. And after that, we did have some questions, some things that we wanted to look into to make sure that we weren't cutting it too thin or, over budgeting. So I went through then and implemented, put all our changes in this little spreadsheet thing where it automatically calculates, the assessments and things like that. And we have a few of the service areas that are of a little bit of concern because of the numbers.
Okay.
So, we're gonna work like anything to try to figure it. I mean, I tweaked it as much as I could on the others to kind of get them, at the most a 3% increase,
Mhm.
but.
While
there-
still maintaining the level of service and the
Yeah.
level Of repair and maintenance and landscaping.
And Tim had very good numbers as far as, what everything was going to cost, this coming year with the landscaping and the plants and the power washing, whatever. So we have some really good hard numbers, I think. So, everything else is kind of, iffy, that can vary, like the water or that kind of stuff. So we're going to have to make some decisions on those 3 or 4 service areas where we do have, a little bit of what I would consider an unreasonable increase, and you guys probably would agree. So there's things that we can do. It's just we have to decide which of those things we want to do that makes the most sense.
Brian?
Okay, can I just, let me jump in for just a minute.
Jump in.
I think we for the perspective of the VMS conversion, some of our numbers in the spreading and allocation, I don't think has been perfect. So Cindy's been trying to come up with that some. I want to be careful here that we don't say we're going to limit a service area to only 3%. We need to figure out, we need to have numbers that are reliable, and Cindy's working on that with Tim and Susanna, but then we need to reflect reality. And I also think when we get it done, we need to look at the reserve cash and the operating cash every one of these service areas has, and we need to make an honest assessment of how much they need. Inflation is just real. And if we let these people go out here at 3% increases, and the real answer is they should have went out at 7 or 9, we're not doing anybody a service, and we'll just have tons of emails next year about how they're out of cash and nothing's working, and that doesn't help us at all. So we need to make sure that we're doing this right.
Yeah.
As regards to CROA budget, we have a finance committee meeting tomorrow night to review the budget. It's the same package that went to the board, and the board package is in for Friday morning's meeting. 25 pages, you've all seen it, deals with 2019 through 2024. This year, we're looking at a increase of roughly 7%, and got 3.5% increases in it right now for the following 2 years. A lot of important things when you look at Island Village and other things like that. No decision has been finalized, but the reality where we're at and stuff like that, it makes it an important conversation. I think we've got a pretty fulsome package. I feel pretty good about it, and that's going to take us where we need to be. But if members of the public are interested, we got Friday morning board meeting where they could hear a lot of things.
If you're interested, join us for the budget meeting. Any other questions, concerns, any other discussion? Kevin?
Quick question, going back to the service area, whether today or next when we have this meeting, feasible, stretch, those things, I will say, are words that kind of hurt me a little bit. And the reason why I bring that up is when we first came on the board, we recognized that the service area manager position was actually being subsidized by the rest of the membership, and all of the owners were actually subsidizing the salary and the expenses around that. And while it's not pretty sometimes, this is the cost to operate this facility. If that's management, insurance, there are legal conversations that we know are quite heavy in some, that needs to be 100% covered by that service area, the same way any other entity in the community. If I need, my insurance premium went too high on my house, I'm not going to go ahead and charge it back to my neighbor. It's just not okay. I don't know how it happened once upon a time. I want to just be sure it doesn't happen any further.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the Friday conversation. I mean,
It is.
I assume we're going to talk about service areas as well as the overall CROA budget. Is that correct?
Yes, and we're also going to talk about Island Village and planning for that. And
I don't know.
No, on Friday, we're definitely not talking about service areas because I don't think the package is done yet.
Okay,
I don't
so
think
we're going to have a
Cindy's ready for
separate meeting to talk about service areas. Is
Well,
that-
Yeah.
I'll have something to share, Brian,
okay,
but I mean, it's up to you.
I think it's a separate conversation. I mean, it's a
Well-
big conversation, isn't it?
But my fear is this. to get through all 25 pages, we don't have to go through, but to get through the 12 or 15 pages that matter on the CROA could easily take 2.5 hours. I think to do service area right, it's going to take another hour and a half.
Well, I'll change my comment to just say it shouldn't take more than 5 minutes for me, as long as I can just get a no, these service areas are not being subsidized by anybody else.
Okay.
That's all I need.
Yeah, that's one issue, but there's a lot to these service areas. And I've been talking about this for 3 years, that service area budgets have not accurately reflected the cost of running them, whether it's the service area manager or some other pieces. And we've had those problems where a service area has wanted to do more than they've got in their reserves or more than they had in their capital. And I would like to see service areas treated, respect isn't the right word. I want us to give enough time to get them right.
I agree.
And I think trying to shove them into the broader conversation does a disservice to that. So I would rather, though I hate the thought of more budget meetings, God, but the thought of having one discussion on the 15 pages that Brian's got and you're working on, and then a separate conversation about service area budgets makes more sense to me. And that's what I would ask us to do.
Well, and I do want to say too, I don't want to give, Kevin, I don't want to give the impression that we're cutting everything down to the nubs, because there were a lot of line items that we looked at, because folks who have done it in the past kind of just like either left it the way it was, or maybe, added a little bit. There were several categories, and they can attest, that we would look at the numbers, what we paid year to date, whatever. It's like, well, this number's not going to work. And we bumped it up, but then we were able to look at other line items and say, well, this is out of whack too. And maybe drop that, that's how we try to arrive at,
But you wouldn't be opposed to a separate meeting.
Oh, no. I would welcome that. And I think these guys would too.
When I'd also like to add that what I'd like to do is send the budgets to the service areas that have committees, have them look at their budget, see what they want to plan for that year. If they want to increase it or decrease something, have them have their comments too, so they're aware, and we get them to sign off on.
We definitely want them involved in the
move it
process
on
for
to-
the buy-in as well as
Yeah.
to maintain.
But I think having them look at it right away is a good step.
David,
Two points on this. One is, we're talking about getting this done for the 22 budget. So that means with notices going to residents, timeline is November 1.
So we send out a proposed budget 2 weeks in advance of the service area meeting that we have, which will be in October, and then they get final approved by the board.
So
at the
we've
end
got
of
to
October or
deal with this.
November.
We've got to deal with this
Yes,
expeditiously.
yes.
The other point is to Jackson's and Kevin's point. This is our chance to get it right. And so going back and revisiting Kevin's idea about basically all expenses affiliated with the service area are paid for by the residents of that service area, I think is your point.
That's
that's-
nothing more, nothing less.
so let me make a proposal. So on Friday, we're going to talk about the CROA budget. Cindy will do an overview of what she has on the service areas. And then at that meeting, let's make a plan on how we're going to cover the rest of the service area. You covering it with the service area committees, as well as finalizing, because you're not finalized on your budget yet.
No, because those.
Yeah,
are
because you're still
issues,
waiting
yeah.
for VMS. So we can decide that on Friday, once we see what you think your timeline, if you can come up with a timeline that where you feel like you'll have all that information that you can provide us, then we can go forward from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
What's our timing for Friday? I know it starts at 9.
9, I think we put 3
12.
hours aside. Yeah.
So we'll know at the end of that, if we have any time left, we might be able to address this or not.
I think at bare minimum, we address some of
What
it,
you
whatever
just
she
said.
has available. If
Right.
not, we'll put a timeline in
And then-
place for the next meeting.
Okay.
And
good.
again, let me stop right here and say a strong thank you to both Brian and Cindy, who've put in countless hours trying to put this budget together. And again, making sure that it is right. There's so many moving pieces this year because of the change in our management company, because of now we have more service areas, because of Island Village. It's much more complicated than it has been in years past. And the hours that they have put in, have been tremendous, as well as what is coordinating with the staff, and Susanna's pulling double duty on that. So again, thank you to our finance and our treasurer for working on that, as well as the finance committee. I think several of you are online as well. So sincere thank yous to the team. You get a raise. Yay!
And historically, sometimes our budget meetings have been all day.
They have.
It's just, and I'm glad that's why I wanted to clarify.
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
they have been all day.
Okay, any other budget information? Now we move on to item 7, which is a discussion and report from our grand manager's transition. And we have our transition liaisons here to talk about what's been going on with transition. Who wants to talk?
I'll start.
Okay.
I sent the board an email on September 4th updating the activities of the week. I'm going to briefly summarize that for the public, but because there were some personnel items discussed in that email and those are confidential, I'm not going to go into those, but you all have your reports. Amber Orduno is the interim executive director. She was in town last week. She's out of celebration this week and be back next week. Stacy Titleman and Dwayne McPherson are here, back in the corner. Yay! Glad to have you.
Yay.
Thank you for being here. This week, among other things, Dwayne and Stacy are doing some meet and greets. They met with board members and some members of the community today. They're meeting with more members of the community tomorrow. And for those of you who are wondering, those are authorized meetings. I'm allowed to schedule those. They will also be attending the CJC meeting tomorrow. That is an important meeting. It's to ratify the contract with Grand Manners between CROA and CCS and CJC. So that's exciting. The next thing is that all of the current staff that's in town hall has been contacted by Grand Manners, and they are in the process of actually receiving job offers. And I can't go into specifics, but I can just tell you that process is now underway. Susanna tells me some of individuals have already received their offers today, and we're excited about that. Where we have gaps in hiring, Grand Manners is already working to post for those job positions and to actively look for people for those jobs. Last week, Amber met with Grand Manners group leaders and their coordinators to talk about a wide variety of issues regarding the transition, including data transfers, Cyranet training, and general logistics. They're working on scheduling training here in Celebration with board members, with key committee members, and with the on-site staff. David is coordinating those efforts and met today with Stacy and Dwayne to talk about those steps. Many of you hopefully saw the article in Celebration magazine this month introducing Grand Manners. There was also an article wrapping up the RFP process, and so we appreciate all of that work and those articles. Wanted to point out that some of the key members of the call center that are in Texas with Grand Manners are actually going to be coming here to Celebration, at least that's what I've been told, so that they can actually physically see the community. They can figure out that it's a long way from Island Village to North Village, and you don't want to send somebody to the playground that isn't there in Artisan Park. And I think that on the whole, it's a great opportunity for individuals to get a better sense of the community. So I appreciate that you're doing that. In terms of data transfer, Cindy is working with Lori at Grand Manners, and they're working with CCMC. They've started some of the first set of data transfers. The one point I want to make, because I know the question's been asked about, will we get homeowner financial data and will we start doing shadow reporting? And as I understand it, the answer to that is no. We're not going to try and do that a lot. In other words, we don't want to get a set of records for owners in October and then a new set in November. We want to do one and make the transition. This is what happens all the time. I'm confident in talking, and I think you are too, that they are doing what they need to do to make those transfers happen. What's being transmitted right now are things like email addresses and just general records and documents for covenants and those kinds of things. We're getting the big stuff first. And then we'll start moving in. The budget will get dropped in. Then we'll go to the individual homeowner records so that we're not creating a shadow set of second documents that have to be updated regularly during the transition period. Because we're not talking about a 4-month transition, it's a little different matter. We're just going to go right into the actual movement of that. So at least that's my understanding. I'm almost done. The recruitment for an executive director and a finance director continues. Resumes, testing, initial interviews are being done. And we'll keep you updated on that. And then last, as I said, CJC is scheduled to meet tomorrow to ratify the contract with respect to CROA, even though that's not our specific part. They are working on the contract, is my understanding. And that's being done with Tom Slayton and Paige Pierce. So there's a lot going on in the transition process. David and Cindy and I are all pursuing the task that you have given us. I know that some members of the community would like to have more access to the managers. The truth is they've got a job to do. And we are being jealous keepers of the gate here so that they can get their work done. And I'm very excited about the work they've done, the quality of the work, the level of work that they've done, the ability to interface with Susanna and her team. I think it's just exemplary. But I also know that we can get in the way and we can make it just a mess for everybody because none of us are experts at this. These guys are experts. I think we need to remind ourselves of that periodically and say, let's just make sure that we're helping them get what they need and do what they need to do. So I will continue to make weekly reports to the board and keep you updated. And if you have questions, let me know.
Yes, we are T-minus 53 days.
Yeah. But who's counting?
They're smiling at the Grand Manners table over here, so they're fine with that. Yes, 53 days. So
Couple quick updates to
Yes.
follow on. As Jackson mentioned, I've met with Amber and Stacy a couple of weeks ago, and then Dwayne and Stacy today, and Amber next week, and Amber and I are in correspondence. But so just a couple of highlights on that. November 1st is the date, and counting, and it's not slipping, but it's November 1st. So you mentioned the article in this month's Celebration News. That's going to be coming next month and the month after, and who knows after that. So we've talked about that. Dwayne's offered today that he's going to prepare a communications plan that talks about the transition, communications during the transition and communications post-transition. And then we got into a robust conversation about technology and portal. Jackson, you've highlighted what will happen on November 1st is all the financial, the technical, the managerial, if you will, things. But that's not the end of it. I mean, there's going to be more rollouts and engagement of some of the committees, technology committee, believe it or not, dog park committee. So we've talked through some of those issues that are unique to those specialties. And we'll be working with Dwayne and Amber primarily and their technical support staff to try to figure out how do we get done what we want to get done. And so it's not all done November 1st. So what you see November 1st will be exciting. It'll be new for us. But what we see December, January, February, March is to be developed. So we're very excited about that. We also talked about some welcoming events with Celia's suggestions, and we've talked about some meet and greet type things, and nothing specific yet, but again, they officially start November 1st, but they'll have, obviously they have a presence behind the scenes now, and then some more public things as it comes along. So again, I echo Jackson's point, very, very excited about what's coming.
very good. Any questions about transition? Any other concerns?
This is Brian. I have one comment if I could. At the finance committee tomorrow, and I'd given Jackson a heads up, we will be talking about finance committee, just monitoring the financial pieces of this to make sure that we have an understanding, because you convert on November 1st, we need to understand and be comfortable that you're going to be able to produce financial statements and everything, because year end is not far away. So just wanted everybody to be aware the finance committee will be discussing that, and we'll have periodic conversation. Cindy obviously is the point person as the transition person, and she's on the finance committee as the treasurer, but we'll be discussing it.
I just had one question. You talked about the recruiting to fill the current job openings. Have they, and I can chuck it to y'all at the table over there. I haven't seen jobs posted in the community. Are you going to want to post those for the residents as well as for referrals? If they know someone who's open to applying for those positions, I would make a suggestion because I know I get my best employees from referrals usually. It says, hey, I want to work with this person.
Sure.
Yeah.
The easiest thing, if I may speak.
Yes. Oh, yes. No, I directed it to you, so
Okay,
please.
just wanna be sure. The easiest thing would be if there's hyperlinks to the job postings from our website that we can give to Susanna,
Mhm.
and that could be posted on the Celebration website, right? Open jobs.
Yeah.
Apply
That's a good
here.
idea.
It could
Yeah,
be-
I would-
It could be that simple.
Yeah.
That would work.
Yeah, I think, because I know in current job market, it's not easy to fill open positions. So anyone who can help put candidates into your pipeline
Mhm.
for hiring would be, I'm sure, appreciated for all of us, because staffing will be a key point.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, no other comments? Oh.
Quick question. All of the people that are meeting with management, they're all committee members?
No, they are committee members, they are people from the foundation, they are stakeholders from various parts of the community. I think we've had to meet over 50 people so far, and we've tried to make it a pretty broad array. The goal here was not to give equal representation, it was to give a wide range of viewpoints and individuals so that management could begin to get a feeling for who's who, put names and faces together. These are 30-minute meet and greets, different than what the board members have been doing. I have invited really from a list of about 150 people. Many of those people have said, can't do it, I'm busy, don't have time. We've got them on the list, we'll go back and try and cover them. We're trying to spend one morning and one afternoon a week so that we don't overwhelm whoever's here from Grand Manners. So if you've got people that you think should be invited that haven't, please send them to me and I'll make the invitation. But I think we've got a pretty wide range of people.
I think I'm just trying to understand just for for the community
Yeah.
of how people are either chosen or contacted or what have you. Because I've heard a wide variety of people and I will agree with that.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the science or the method around it. So I was curious, as a better example, we are CROA. So those that directly come in contact with us, of course, come from above, side, below. So committees are excellent.
Yeah.
How about service areas or
Yeah, we've
condo
invited
associations?
service areas, condo board members, we've invited CCD.
We've communicated to all of those.
We have
So
sent
like every
emails.
condo
We
association.
are trying to get to all of them, but we did not send out a blast email to everyone. These are individual invitations. And we have started to work through the condos. So I think we have 11 condos, 12 condos in the community. We've gotten to 4 or 5 of them so far. We'll get to all of them, but the point is you can't meet with 12 at once.
No,
So
no, of course. I'm just trying to understand the priority
There
for
was no
somebody
real
that might
priority.
not be on a committee or anything other than they live
Yeah,
here.
the priority
And how
was
they were
committee
chosen.
members, elected officials like CCDD, people that had some particular stake in the community that we thought was important. We reached out to people in town center. We reached out to some CROA people. We wanted to give management, because they have responsibilities across the entire range of the community, an opportunity to talk to a variety of people. So I would welcome anybody that's listening that wants to engage in one of these, contact me. Now, it may irritate some people that I'm the gatekeeper, but that somebody's got to do that, right? So that's what we're doing. And nobody has been denied the opportunity to have a meeting if they ask.
No,
for it.
excellent. No,
We're just trying
somebody,
to get through everybody.
somebody actually called me earlier today and they weren't sure how people are being chosen. So I'm sure it's just like everything else where
Yeah.
communication is key. with
It'll
that.
be discussed on the back porch in detail later.
Of course, always is.
Okay, David.
Yeah, to me, I'm glad these are happening. And I think it's an acquaintanceship to the higher level Grand Manners personnel who are not going to be our executive director.
Right.
So it's introducing Dwayne, Stacy, and Amber, the interim executive director, to our community, some of the ups and downs and ways and ins and outs, so that they get a better handle, so they have a good jump start November 1st. Once we have a full-time, non-interim executive director, then it's about relationship building. And that's an individual not yet identified.
Yeah, the first relationships to be built were with the board members, which is why the
Which
board
is-
members all got
Well, yeah,
meetings today.
but it's the
for
corporate, it's
second
the,
and
at the
third
corporate,
time,
at the corporate level.
Yeah.
I mean, at the, and I think that's very important. So, but I think the ultimate relationship, whomever is selected as executive director will be bridging that with all of these other constituents. It'll be like a repeat in a sense.
And they'll be able
These
to
and
handle
many,
that.
many more.
They'll be able to handle that.
One of the things that, you
Yeah,
know, I
they
think
will, they will.
I think
That's what we're gonna hire.
these meetings do. I mean, we've made a huge decision to make a change from CCMC, our long-term business partner, to Grand Manners. And the more people that we have that are confident with the skills and the professionalism and the company that we've selected will only benefit. I mean, we know that going into this transition, we're going to do the best that we possibly can, and they're going to do an exceptional job. But the more people that we have who know what's going on, who can help us touch even more residents that maybe don't read the articles or look at the Friday Flash and go, I'm not reading that. The more people we have that have had interactions with this company and with the people that are going to be on the ground making this transition happen, I think the better. If you have, Kevin, if you've got people who.
It was a question I was
Okay.
asked and I didn't have an answer.
I,
And
yeah,
No, it's a
no,
good-
I think you
that's
bring
why
up a
I'm
great
asking. It's a
point because,
perfectly good
yeah,
question.
no, I think it is too.
I would also say, just to finish up,
Mhm.
some of you that are listening have town hall email addresses and you don't read your email.
We're going to talk, that's a transition question we're going to talk about at town hall.
So, you know, if it's the only way we got to reach you, it's the only way we've got to reach you.
So if you haven't heard from Jackson, you might want to read your email.
You might want to check.
And then one final thing real
Huh?
quick. I don't know if there's just we've had a lot of turnover in the community everywhere, the housing market, of course. And the welcome packet that does exist still explains who CCMC is, things like that. Is there any way that we can take some action on getting that information out for new homeowners so there's not confusion?
I know I know Grand Manners has a great new resident program that they'll bring to us, but in the
But right
interim, we
now,
probably need
over the
to,
next 2 months,
yeah.
we're handing out
November 1st.
who's
we-
your management company and we're not
As of
sure.
November 1st, yeah.
Yeah, and then we need to maybe put a page or an insert that says, as of November 1st, this is the company, this is where you'll set up your account, that sort of
So
thing.
we'll
I
have to
agree.
do some.
Well, really,
For the
as of
liaison.
November- as of November 1st, that should probably go to a lot more people than just new people. I mean, we're going to have
No,
to do a blast to everybody.
Well, I think he's talking about, yes, that will go to
And I know
everybody,
what
but I
Kevin's
think.
talking about. It's a
Okay.
it's a good point, but it's going to have to be brought.
Okay,
So are you, is there direction to create a page in the welcome packet to talk about what's coming up?
I would say we could write a blurb that say, here's the welcome package now, and then effective November 1st, this is what's going to transition. I think that's a fair point.
I'll move forward with that.
I would think you could actually just steal a page out of this Celebration magazine or one of something like that where we've already done it.
Yeah. Use that verbiage.
Or maybe Grand Manners has something, just a letter of introduction or something that they use in communities, or between the two of them, something.
That'll be part of that communications
Yeah.
plan.
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm
rather
sorry,
than recreating the wheel.
Celia has been patiently
I'll work
raising
with
her
them on
hand.
that.
And I'm sorry, yeah, you're to my left here. Celia, what can you?
I
what
just
would
I just want to thank Cindy, David, and Jackson for being part of this transition team, especially Jackson, all the hours you've put in. Thank you, because it makes it easier for the whole transition and for the board members and the community to understand what's going on. So thank you.
Well said.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we are done with transition. The next one
Oh, I
is,
wish we were.
I know. Well, done with the transition on the board member packet. We're not done with transition. The next one is item 8, which is pickleball. I'd kind of like to start out the comments on pickleball. The item on the agenda actually reads pickleball and adult sports, lawn sports update. Let me just make a clarifying statement. We did have to move our pickleball Q&A away from a religious holiday, which runs from the 15th to the 16th from sundown to sundown. So that's why the meeting was moved. We have incorporated pickleball as the majority time holder on our September 22nd board meeting. So we just, instead of adding yet another meeting, we just decided to put it as part of the board meeting where it will be the main focus of the board meeting. We will still ask for residents Q&A. We will still talk about the presentations from our pickleball task force. Lawn sports, adult lawn sports may be there as well, if they've got a presentation, and we'll also discuss it among the board. At that meeting, because it is more of a Q&A, we will not be making any decisions at that meeting. We are going to discuss the options, and there are many options. If you want to talk about where, what amenities, what we're going to do. We have had many comments, and I certainly welcome more comments from the residents. We've had many ideas, some that could be very viable, some that may not be viable. But I will say we've also had assumptions. We've also had wrong information being perpetuated out into the community by social media, stating that we have spent, are going to spend large amounts of money without including the residents in that decision. The Q&A will be September 22nd. As I said, we're all going to keep our humor, our passion, and our commitment to this project as we move forward. At this point, just to clarify, we have spent no money on pickleball. We have not spent any money. Our plan is to create a plan to get bids on where possible pickleball can be placed in the community, as well as other amenities. But whatever we do, just know that there will be costs associated with that. And I know that someone has quoted that pickleball will cost 1.1 million. That's not necessarily true. The cost to prepare the land will be the majority of that cost. And to clarify that, our dog park, to clear the land, set the land up, and set up the dog park was close to $900,000 from beginning to end. So we have to think about that. I know they're large numbers as we move forward, but it is going to be a big decision. And we, as your board, your elected board members, get the pleasure or the pain of moving this project forward. So we appreciate all your comments, and I certainly welcome you to comment in the meetings. We can also send email. Our emails are online. We have a CROA board email as well that you can send it to all of us and get everyone in one email. So I will open it up. Those are my opening comments, and I will open it up for the rest of the board to make comments as well. And we do have a couple comments in the chat box.
Can I jump in on
You go
pickleball?
right ahead. You go right ahead.
All right. So first off, in an effort to make the transition go very smoothly, we decided to make pickleball the only thing people in town would discuss so that there would be clear sailing for Grand Manners.
Thank you for keeping our humorous side.
You better believe it. So,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to deal with a few issues that we're even going out in post today that are just totally incorrect. We are looking at ideas where to put stuff. We never looked at all of Lot D. All of Lot D was never even a consideration. It is a piece of Lot D, and the Lot B had been looked at in late 2019 to early 2020. We had quotes on Lot B for $1 million to $1.3 million, but you need to understand 750,000 of that was prepping the land. We are very well aware that we have Lot B, we have Lot D, maybe we have some space at Heritage Hall, and maybe North Village or some places like that. But there's only a couple of places when you look at noise and everything else that are real options. We understand people care about parking. We are using the meeting on the 22nd, other things to get feedback. But what we're really striving to do here is go get quotes and get bids so that we can deal with the truth of the numbers. David has commented in some of his stuff, that we did do the community plan in 2019, 18, 19. And, pickleball was right there with the community center and with other items. We have been talking about, using the 851 building as an addition there to maybe do community center type stuff. We do have the lawn sports group that we're looking at separately. We won't do that on the 22nd. That'd be too much conversation, I think. We've, looking at possibly on Lakeside, a facility there for concerts and stuff like that to help with that. So we're looking at a lot of things, and too many people are assuming that something is done. And the other thing that needs to be said is the task force was formed by the board in response to requests from management and the recreation committee. That's why we did it, so that there would be a specified group both for that and for adult sports that dealt with the issues. That's why the task force got formed. The task force does not have the authority to spend any money. The task force cannot make decisions. They make recommendations to the board, and that is how the process worked. And task force have been used several times in the past. So we need truth in some of this conversation too. And that's done for me.
Any other comments about pickleball? David?
Two brief ones, just Brian's closing. Brian, thank you for that. That was very eloquent. True, I was going to make the point of facts. We want facts out there. You talk about truth, we need facts. Put the facts out, not the rumors, not the innuendos. That's just not fair. And then the other piece is that a lot of the documents from the recreation study that we did that is current, that is 2019, that is on the website in a special tab called Pickleball or Pickleball Task Force or Pickleball Discussion. But it's right there in our materials, and all sorts of other minutes from other meetings and other recommendations from whether it's pickleball group or the recreation committee. So that's all online though. And so again, we want to hear what residents have to say and what other questions, and then we'll move forward from there.
Any other comments?
I will.
Cindy?
And then I also want to say that the sport of pickleball has not just dropped out of the air someplace. It's been around for a long time. We did the same kind of a community survey. I want to say it had to be, was it 2011? Yep, that sounds about right. It was on a Saturday. We invited, families to come. All these rooms were open and filled with people that had ideas. We had a facilitator, we provided lunch. And at that time, people were still asking for pickleball, as well as a community center and other things. We have limited funds. It makes sense to kind of go down the pecking order. Perhaps we'll have somebody left over where we can do some low-hanging fruit at some of the parks, maybe additional picnic tables or grills, or, just some little things like that to freshen up the passive parks and, give you in each neighborhood something to be, proud of and use as a recreational facility. I also think it would be a good idea, this is kind of a side note, unless you have a reason to go into another village here, most likely you don't go. We have, 49 passive parks in this community, something like that. There's some small ones, or maybe there's just a little bench, but there's others that are quite nice, that you may not even know about. So if you're looking to, to do a pickup game of kickball or something like that, there are places in the community that you can do that without having to have a big, formal field and things. So that might be something that we might do in conjunction with, these amenities that, we're looking at. But so that's all I want to say.
Thank you. You may. None of them are working, but they can still hear you.
Hello?
It works for online. It just doesn't work in the
Okay.
Zoom. So you're being heard.
Okay, good. Because I'm just gonna scream out a few, well, not scream out, just throw out a
Sorry.
few words that, like shady, hush hush, under the table, undermining the residents, spending their money recklessly, and us not being transparent. As a board member, I find that offensive. Since I've been on the board in March, have been totally transparent with this whole process. It went on before I became a board member. I remember coming here in 2019 and putting the little sticky dots on the wall. But as a board member, running on communication, we have been transparent. And for me, it started on March 19th, sitting in here discussing Lot B and Lot D and Field 1 in such, we've discussed it over and over again. We discussed it April 9th, we discussed it May 14th, we discussed it June 18th. It's been in the magazine for 3 months when David does his articles. And for people to say that us as elected board members are being shady and undermining the residents is completely offensive to me as a board member. I'm sorry, I sit here with 6 of us. We don't always agree, but we're not shady and we're very transparent. We've discussed it over and over and over and over again. But all of a sudden, it's like pickleball fell out of the sky. It's like a hurricane just hit. It's like
To coin a phrase.
nobody knew about it. We've been totally transparent. So I have to get that out there. And I hope that people see this, because if you didn't elect us as your representatives and we weren't transparent, I could see the issues that's going around on social media. But we are transparent and we're doing everything we can to make this work. So please don't insult us, because that's not why we're here.
Thank you.
Okay, it's just not enough.
Thank you.
Sorry, but
No,
that's my
no.
passion.
No,
Nicely
We are
said.
being transparent.
we are. And I appreciate you making that comment. So thank you.
Nicely said.
Nicely
Thank you.
said. Appreciate your passion. Any other comments? There's a couple
That might
comments in the, yep. Are you ready to talk, Kevin? You looking like you might
No,
want to.
in 4 years, you're not even gonna notice those messages.
Oh, I know. I know, but-
It's frustrating. It is
Yeah.
frustrating. And I invite every single person in this community that wants to jump forward. Sign up. December applications come out. There's 2 seats coming up. Good Lord, come on, do it, because I'm out. So here's 1 seat for you. And because of that, I'm actually going to not do what was done to me by previous board members. And that was undertake a large project without thought, without process, without understanding, for God's sakes, without restrooms. That was a project that was left for me, and I would never do that to somebody else. So I will be not a fan of proceeding forward for that reason.
It
to
got
make
it
that
in at
clear.
a lower cost, Kevin.
Yeah,
There you go.
Every reason that, I mean, and that's, I guess, my biggest challenge with pickleball is this board. I have confidence that this board has the understanding of how large of an item this is and how important it is to do it right. And we need to learn from what our mistakes have been in the past. And that was
What you inherited.
developing
You're right.
an area that was done incorrectly and in poor form. With that being said, though, I will still suggest things and throw opinions out where I see them. I would like to see, as we go through these conversations, just the cost, and I may have said it to you, just the cost to develop the land. I don't care if it's nothing but a grassy park. What is the expense just to
And-
develop that land?
That's a good.
I
And I want
agree.
to separate that entirely from this project.
100%.
That has
The
nothing to do with
secondary
what we put on
item.
top of the land.
That's right.
You are right.
Secondary.
Basketball court.
Yes.
There's
Whatever.
4.
Yeah,
That's
Maybe
I
it was
actually
right, I don't know.
I actually very much agree with what Kevin just said. If we should, whether it's Lot B, whether it's Lot D, or pick another place, we should really itemize it so people understand what it cost for the different component pieces that matter.
Because that is the land prep is going to be the most
That
expensive part
changes-
of this, and
that
it will
changes
change
a
all
lot.
the discussions. So,
And then whatever locations there may be, we need to go ahead and look at that separate expense and the benefit. I had a challenge that the soccer fields, as an example, was very focused on one group of the community. I still do not care for that process that happened and what happened around it. And I see us following that path once more. A few more things. Hold on one moment. The noise when we do go into different areas of the community, I think is extremely important. I sent it off to the board, to everybody that's here. Pickleball is a sport that is more often played morning and evenings, as I understand it, when the sun isn't as strong and the noise carries that much further. When we decide our location, that is extremely important. And I fear the not in my backyard situation is actually appropriate for this situation. And that is a huge thing that we need to recognize. You see it in other communities that have gone through, and pickleball is something that has been growing. I joked around, and I also sent to the board, I think 2 weeks ago on my Facebook page in my hometown, they were all excited for opening their pickleball courts.
There you go.
And I couldn't get away. But I will recognize it's something that is coming. Now, I will just comment on one thing that Cindy mentioned, which is perhaps there is some low hanging fruit that we can grab in the parks. My only challenge, and don't take this the wrong way, was the way you said it, which is the priority. And it felt like that was the back end and the leftover money. Whereas I would like to go ahead and see this community, especially after a year and a half of pandemic mode of trying to get out, but can't go into large areas. I would rather see our parks, our benches, our everything you name that we currently have taken care of before we build something else that is nothing, and it's not to be offensive, nothing more than another expense at the moment, because that's all the fields have been. It's been nothing but another expense. And I refuse to be signing on for just another expense right now when there's areas we need to fix.
Well said. I think, I'm not sure whose hand was up first. You want to let Jackson go next? Jackson.
I want to echo a lot of what Kevin just said. I'm not going to speak to the merits of pickleball, but I want to talk about process, because Brian and David and Kevin and I walked into a firestorm 4 years ago. We got hit with a project that was voted on in the 11th hour by a board that was getting turned over with an ill-conceived, ill-designed program, and we were asked to figure it out. And out of deference to that board and the community, we executed that program and ended up with a $4.5 million facility. And I'm proud of the facility, but I'm not proud of the process at all. The process didn't work. It was broken. And so the charter task force came back and said, wait a minute, you need rolling budgets, and you can't turn over an entire board in one election. And you've got to have some accountability here. And so part of what we did was we created a plan for amenities. And then we promptly proceeded to ignore the plan that we had found, and we started all over again. And then in the absence, and I mean no disrespect by this to anyone that works for CCMC, but in the last year, management abandoned us. And in the vacuum of management's complete abdication of their responsibility, we as a board had to decide how to proceed. In any rational community, the process would have been to go to your manager and say to your manager, come back and get bids and tell us what the options are and make a recommendation. That did not happen here. And I appreciate that the task force went out and did that work. They did what managers should do. I appreciate that the Recreation Committee went and looked at that and tried to give their input as well. But now what happens is that from a process standpoint, we are back to decision-making by Lord of the Flies. Who can yell the loudest? Who can pack the room? Who can send out the most posts and say, come to that meeting and raise your arms and scream and yell? And I remember the threats that were made against your husband that night in the room. It was ugly, ugly, ugly. I agree with Celia. It's insulting, but I'm used to being insulted. But it is not, we are elected, but we are volunteers. And frankly, we treat the community with respect as volunteers, and I think we deserve to be treated with respect as volunteers. And this attempt to strong-arm any decision based on who can yell the loudest or create the most amount of disruption breaks the process. And so as we go forward on pickleball and lawn sports, the process has to come first. We followed process on the RFP, and I think we got to a marvelous resolution.
Oh, yeah.
I think we did it just right. But if we had abandoned process, the result might not have been this. And so I want to just echo what Kevin said. This has got to be about process. We're not going to take a vote on the 22nd. We're not going to spend your money. We're not going to do any of those things. Just let us do our jobs. Let us engage this new management company, which I'm just taking a guess that somewhere across the country, they've done a pickleball court or two, and let us get them on board and start to think about what we need to do and what's rational, taking all the ideas you've heard tonight and the many more you're going to hear. No one's got a monopoly on wisdom. No one has a monopoly on the right or the wrong. Just let us do the process.
Thank you. David.
Yeah, so I'm all about process. And just to clarify a little bit of what you said, I was actually on the board that decided to authorize $2.8 million. My estimate at that time was 4.5. There was zero discussion about annual costs. And so following that and following the Lowe's design, which is the company that did the study 2019, we built some guiding principles, one of which says, as we make decisions moving forward, we need to consider the annual costs. We need to consider what the replacement cost is 10 years out, as we knew when we authorized the vote was 6-1. And frankly, that was the only time in my life I've been booed by 30 people in this room. One of those most humbling experiences.
More than 30.
Well, whatever. In this room, we opened the doors and there were a few more. But to Celia's point, it's like that was so insulting. Absolutely. When we dedicate our hours, people think that you come to the board and you're going to spend 2 hours a week. Baloney. If you want to spend 2 hours a week, you're going to be ostracized by the other board member. We don't spend 2 hours a week. It's gobs more. It's a labor of love. And our decisions, to your point again, Jackson, are about what's best for the community. We may come at it different ways, but it's what's best. And it is about process. We've had a great process. How many negative comments have we had on the RFP process?
No. Zero.
How many?
Zero.
None. It was a damn good process. It was a great process. We got comments from the hired management company and others that made it to the finals that says, we've never seen a process like this. This is thorough, it's fair, it's inclusive. I mean, we even had questions before that said, is this a real process? Are you really running a process, or is it just a shoe-in for the incumbent? I mean, literally, we got those questions. But it was real, and we knew it was real. And so this is going to be real. We will make decisions. Everyone will not be happy. None of us, contrary to the non-facts on the back porch, none of us plays pickleball. None of us, I don't think, am I correct? Knows we could probably not pick out what a pickleball racket, is that what you call it? Looks like? Oh, we know what it looks like?
No, we've been accused.
Oh, we've been accused, that's right.
Wanting
But
pickleball 'cause we play it.
contrary to the accusation, that is not a fact. None of us have a vested interest, except what's doing best for the community. And we will end up doing something that is best for our community. And like we've talked about service areas in the budget, let's do it right. And part of my reason for a no vote that night 3 or 4 years ago was, wait a minute, there's new information that changes everything that came in this morning. Why don't we wait another month? Parenthesis, there's a new board then. I mean, that was the answer. So it was pushed down the road. We're not going to do that again. We're going to do what's right. We're going to do what's right. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know where we're going to end up, but it's going to be what's right. And then the other thing is going back to the report. So you made a point about 2011, and someone has already accused me like 2 weeks ago of oh yeah, I was in that room with those stickies. That's not science. And I said, it's not science. That was not science. And it happened in this room, not just in 2011, it happened in 15, it happened in 18 or 19 before the report. That was not science. What was science was the survey to 100% of our residents. Whether they chose to respond or not, it was a survey to 100%. Stickies on a wall is a good jump start. It's not to count stickies. That's not what we did any decisions on. It was the data and the facts from the survey to all residents. So good process. We're gonna have a doggone good process again. Enough.
Not gonna
Sorry,
stop.
my rant.
No,
I love
I-
David's rant.
No,
I said-
oh, you ain't seen a rant.
That's
That's a
okay.
wild one.
let's put it this way. The board is very passionate and we got a lot of work to do on whatever pickleball, whatever this ends up looking like. And the one thing I would say is I'm very sorry that there are not more residents here tonight. So,
They can listen to it.
That's what I was
Especially that the
just-
agenda was posted on the back porch and the front porch.
so Patrick, I have just sent you an email requesting the link to this meeting. And could you please give me the exact time when the pickleball discussion started?
That's a good point.
So we can share that with our naysayers and our commentators
And put
to
that
say
on
if they
there,
would
Fred?
like, if they would like to hear the transparent discussion of the pickleball, they can find the meeting minute, the meeting recording on the town hall website, and the discussion started
The
at this
facts.
time.
The facts.
So let's talk that.
Diane, can I add a comment, please, Diana?
You certainly may. Go ahead.
I just want to deal with one more fact, just so everyone in the community who listens, the board makes the decision to spend the money. We took the survey as David elegantly laid out, and we've been moving forward from that, but there will not be another vote. We don't take votes of the community to get their feedback on where to spend money. The board makes those decisions based upon the process that has been in place to this time. Any expenditure greater than $250,000 requires vociferous public comment and feedback processes, which we're having now. But this is the way you govern through the 7-person board like this.
All right.
I have a related, if I may.
Yes. Well, are we done? Are you done with pickleball?
It's
It's
exiting pickleball.
exiting pickleball. Okay, so we're done with pickleball. So I think the last part, last on the agenda is board comments. So David,
So
you have
if
a
I may
board
start with
comment?
that,
Oh, I
you know,
thought
Cindy,
that's what we
I
were
really
doing.
liked
That was
something.
pickleball.
I liked one thing you said. No, I liked a lot of what you said tonight, but you said something about fixing up the passive parks. That's
And
great.
so did Kevin, yeah.
Oh, Kevin said that first?
Well, we both did.
Both did.
Yeah, but I said it
We
a different way.
prioritize.
You had so many things you said, Kevin.
I don't speak much, but come on,
Yeah,
when I speak.
No, but, you know, we've talked about that, but I think about this when if I look at that report that is on the pickleball side, and it's elsewhere too, it's under recreation too. It wasn't just about amenities, but it was how should we spend our money? Low hanging fruit or save for the later, you know, fix up existing amenities, build something new. We had 50-50 split on both of those. So that is data. That's where our community said they're split. They don't want to, don't want one or the other. They want both. So that's helpful. So as we get into the budget discussion on Friday, that's my point, is as we look at this budget, do we have funding? Maybe we need more funding. Maybe we need a pool that says this is just for sprucing up, not repair. I mean, it's a difference than just repairing.
Right. Than just maintenance.
Yeah, repairing things. It's more intentional sprucing up. So I will raise that again on Friday.
Well, but we need to. I'm sorry, I need to jump in here.
No, that was.
When you took but we have replacement reserves. So when Kevin talks about fixing things, it is a replacement reserve expenditure. This board is authorized to spend those funds whenever we want, and there is no reason why we can't do that. If we add benches, if we add things, then that comes out of the capital funds. And I've said, we're going to have capital funds at the end of 2024. They're going to approach $5 million. That doesn't include any expenditure. So we got real money here when we talk about new amenities, whatever they may be, new type of items. But on a replacement reserve basis, we have those funds. And if we think we need a project to go out there and really fix up XYZ Park, we should make it a priority.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
That's a wonderful, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we have fresh eyes coming in, which is really nice.
Any other board comments?
Kevin,
We did not.
The questions you asked of the finalists, give a numerical rating of CROA owned properties, residential owned properties
That's
downtown.
that's the stuff that
We
to
need
focus
at
on.
least the numbers that we're responsible for to move.
Yes, I agree. Brian, you said something?
Yeah, well, in the case, if we're doing board comments, or just to make sure, because for the total transparency part of this, we are actively moving forward with the lawn sports project too. So I want to make sure everybody's hearing that. We have not come, I mean, they're actively looking at Heritage Hall as an example, but we're really looking at it. What would a design look like? You know, working with Albert Riddle, what would it be like? Because when you get to Kevin's noise type thing, you can take certain places and it's a quieter sport and stuff like that. You get in not in my park type conversations, which we'll all have to have. And I agree greatly with Kevin that I think pickleball would be very loud for some of these communities, be right in their next door to your house. So I just want to make sure that we clearly state here that lawn sports is actively being looked at.
Right. One other comment, just so everyone's aware, we do have a meeting tomorrow, just of a couple leaders from the pickleball task force and recreation, as well as Brian and I, to set the agenda and what exactly is going to get covered from a presentation point of view for that board meeting on the 22nd. So it's just a planning session. No decisions are being made. Nothing's being eliminated. It is just we're not spending any money. We're just going to plan the agenda so we know who's going to go when and what they're going to say and what support they need to do their presentation.
And it's
So
not a public.
it is not a public meeting. It is just a sit down to figure out how we're going to discuss and how we're going to set up the meeting for the 22nd. That's all it is, in case that becomes an issue, which it has before. Okay. All right. Do we have any other comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, I just want to make one comment.
You didn't get a second. You were so
Were you gonna
close.
say second? Is that the comment?
Close.
No,
What's your comment,
I
ma'am?
just want to thank Susanna for all your hard work. You've been amazing. Thank you.
Very well. Doing double and triple duty
Yes.
right now. So, okay. Very good. What did you say, Jackson?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well done, team. Thank you.